Hi, good evening, councillors, officers and visitors. Before we start the formal agenda, we do have a presentation. It's a presentation similar to one that was afforded the Joint Committee last week. And I'm very pleased to welcome Carol Rooker from Central Bedfordshire Council and Stephen and Katerina from Concertus. And it's about Vernon Place. If you remember where the library and social service or youth services used to be, that empty space that's been there for a while. So I will hand over then whoever's going to start. Carol.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for actually squeezing us onto your agenda tonight. It's really kind of you because I know you've got a busy agenda. And what we're here to do really is just to talk through the latest designs that we've got for Vernon Place, which we know is just at the back of this building. So just to introduce myself, I'm Carol Rooker and I work in the housing service for Central Bedfordshire, and I'm technically the sponsor for this development. And then I'm joined here by Stephen and Katerina from Concertus, who are our architectural partners, and they've been working on the scheme and coming up with the design. So we're keen to share these initial design plans with you because we're just about, or we're in the middle now, we've actually started a wider engagement process. So as the councillor said, we went along to the Joint Committee the week before last. We're now here, and then hopefully a week today we're actually starting we're going to have a public exhibition at the Dunstable Centre, and we're also going to distribute a pamphlet with the outline plans to all the people who live near Vernon Place and all the businesses. So the scheme, I think, will provide an exciting and attractive new building right in the town centre. I know many of us who've worked and lived in Dunstable for a long time have seen it empty since the library was demolished. And we want to offer some rented housing that we know is in great demand in Dunstable. In the whole of Central Bedfordshire, the demand for housing in Dunstable is the highest. And what we're trying to do also is offer some homes for people who are supported by adult social care, so people with care needs, maybe it's a physical disability and or a learning disability. And social care think that actually having housing right in the town centre, close to all the facilities, but also have a small care team on site who can help them, you know, to get more involved in the community. And I'm sure all of us would agree with that. The scheme also will help to bring some life into the town centre, as well as redevelop that empty plot in a visible location. So we welcome any comments you make, you know, good or bad. Obviously, we're really excited to be here to share them. And I think we'll be taking all the feedback to actually develop our plans even further, if we can. And at that, I'm going to hand over to Stephen and Katerina to actually go through more of the detail. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for letting us come to you and present where we are with the process. I think it's important that we have this engagement, and through early engagement, what we feel is appropriate on the site, looking at the context, working through the needs with Carol and her team, has got us to the position where we are now, which is to engage with the we're potentially most of the way there, but it'd be useful just to get an understanding from those who are going to be looking at this building on a more daily basis than maybe ourselves, that it is right for where they are. I'm sure you're well aware of the site, but just for context purposes, our site is obviously the originally Dunstable Library, which was demolished and relocated some while back. This was allocated as part of the housing strategy and is in a part of central Dunstable that is in need of housing. The needs assessment that's been done by Carol and her team has identified that, you know, one-bedroom apartments are very hard to come by, and actually there's a great need for those for both private residential and supported residential as well. So the plan is to allow for both of those opportunities on this site. It's also quite a key location in that it sits right onto the High Street connection through from the Grove Theatre, the Dunstable Centre and the college behind, and we see it as quite an active frontage, or want to encourage a lot more activity across that site and encourage people through and back into the High Street, which we know over recent years is, like many other high streets, struggling and looking to find new ways of invigorating it. So we're hoping that what we're proposing only helps towards those goals going forward. Again, for those who may not have seen it, because it has been some while since it stood on the site, it's not necessarily the most exciting of buildings, and although it is a shame to use those facilities, it's good that it's been relocated elsewhere. The ambition now is to provide something that's almost as community focused in a way that still allows that sort of connection for the wider community, and a lot of our design does reflect on both some of the historical nature of the materials and colours that were there, and links back to some of the other landmarks and features that have been erected more recently, such as the college and the Grove Theatre nearby. Again, just creating that bit of connection back to the local community.
So we can go through the plans now. And in terms of the proposed development, is a 5-story building providing 41 bed 2-person flats, spaces for community use, parking facilities. So in terms of ground floor, we've got 4 wheelchair user flats, which is Part M category 3, which are provided shown in blue colour, with cares accommodation for assisted living, and all flats will be provided with private terrace areas. The 2 multi-purpose areas are located to the front and are provided with separate access. The fully glazed facade encourages that interaction that Stephen just spoke about with the public realm, and encouraging people to go through that front street, front bit of the building. The main entrance to the building is from the southeast, with the vehicular access to the site to be retained, and access is provided through Vernon Place, to the east. Thank you. 3 accessible bays are located within the courtyard area, with additional parking facilities externally, including electrical vehicle charging points. Ancillary areas like the plant room, bin store, mobility, cycle storage are located on ground floor and shown in green colour. The 2 stair courts are provided, one accommodated with a fire lift, to meet the current fire building regulations. So if we move to first floor, 11 category 1 flats, which is visitable dwellings, are provided on first floor, and another 11 on second floor. Each flat has a private balcony, and an enclosed corridor has been allowed for secure access to the stair core areas. Moving to third floor, an additional 8 flats are provided on third floor with outdoor space for tenants to the front. This helps reducing the massing of the building, but also meet the suggested outdoor areas per flat as per the CBC design guidelines. If we move to fourth floor, we've got 6 more flats on fourth floor with additional space to the northeast. That's again to meet the CBC design guidelines for having outdoor space per flat. And if we move to fifth floor, the stair core provides access to the roof level for planned equipment maintenance, so it's purely for maintenance. In terms of elevations and the materials, although the site is not within the conservation area but very close to, the planning authority were very interested in the quality of the proposed materials. Grey or blue brick and white render has been proposed as they resemble what was originally there. Stone cladding is also used to vertically break the elevation, and it's seen by the local authority to be of high quality. Aluminium shaders are used around the balconies to help reduce the solar gain. So we've got the front glaze of the units, of the commercial units, so multi-purpose areas to the front. And then that's the back with the terrace areas on ground floor, and then the terrace on 4th floor. So yeah, it keep the same materials. So yeah, here's the material. So we've got the grey brick that was there before, used in the Dunstable Library before demolishing. Then we've got at the top left corner the stone cladding, the two types of render. White resembles what was previously there. We've got the aluminium shaders to the top right corner, and the balcony and the shaders that will provide more privacy to the flats.
So putting the building into context, which we think helps give people a bit of an idea. You can see here that we're trying to retain what was there. We have stepped back the frontage of the building from the original site location boundary, which the library was built right up to. What we're trying to do is increase, and I think it's almost doubled, that vista that goes from the road edge to the building edge, just to encourage that wider connection through to the shopping centre. It's quite prominent, and I think bringing a building too far forward would mask that a little bit. And also there is a green requirement now, so going forward all councils are looking for planning applications to show what's called a biodiversity net gain. So basically creating green spaces that add a diversity to your enhancement of all sites. 10% is quite a challenge in some locations. Thankfully, ours is of middling to low existing benefit, so anything we do is seen as a net gain, but certain approaches and certain things we have to do are done in a way that makes a certain gain in certain requirements. And I think one of the feedbacks we've had from our advisor on biodiversity is the trees, I think, isn't it? And trying to create something that's established and quite full quite early, rather than planting something tiny that takes years to establish and actually become a benefit to the local biodiversity. So you can see that the connection and the tiering of the building. We have done previous concepts which we spoke through with planners. We've had much bigger buildings, we've had much smaller buildings, and it's a fine balance. It's about making something that is viable for the council to develop and take forward, that gives as much housing as possible, because the need is beyond anything we can deliver on this site alone, whilst at the same time trying not to dominate the skyline, create something that's overshadowing what's going on in that area. We're significantly quite far away from existing housing, so there's little overlooking concern, but again, you still don't want to have to put in anything that's too demanding. And actually the 4th floor, so the 5th level of this building, is actually not too far off one of the highest points of the original building. And we have got some studies and some sections we've done to show that in context as well, which all was formed as part of some previous planning activities. So the highest point overlooks the furthest corner heading towards the Asda car park. So again, it's sort of not overshadowing too much of the local community, and keeps the sort of the mass of the housing away, and keeps the active frontage a lot closer to the Vernon Place through road. And here is your approach to the building as you're coming from the shopping centre entrance and then across the front of the building on towards the community area, with the all flat entrances, and again trying to put into context the green spaces and the wider vista that we've now created. So as I say, this is part of an ongoing process that we've got at the moment. Our next public engagement apart from yourselves, is next week, where we set up, remind me, Dunstable Centre from 3 till 7, and we're encouraging the locals, yourselves and anyone else to come down, have a look. And there's also a feedback opportunity. I think it's a website and an email being set up that people, having had a look and maybe going away and speaking to others or having a think about it, can then present any questions or concerns they want to share, and then that will be used for us to finalise the design going forward. So thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you very much for that. I'm sure that many, if not most of us or all of us, would be welcome some development in that area. It's been a bit of a sore site for a few years. Just a matter of clarification before I open it up. On our briefing document, it talked about currently scoping 34 one-bed units, and I think, Katerina, you mentioned 41. I didn't actually add them up as the different floors were presented, but...
Sorry, it's 41 bedroom, 2-person flat, so it's 40 flats in total.
Okay, and I noted that in 2019 you're looking at the possibility of retail. That has now been put to one side.
It's described, is undefined at this stage. It's a multi-use that could cope from anything from a small gallery to a small coffee shop. It's sort of, we're not trying to label it because we don't want to necessarily take spaces away from the town centre, but they're small enough that it might allow a small start-up or someone like that to come along, have a go, see how well they do in whatever business venture they have, and then hopefully take on a bigger space in the town centre if it's a sort of viable or growable business. So it's an extension of the town, but not trying to take away the more valuable, larger spaces, and might give locals somewhere to have smaller engagement or small start-up opportunities.
Okay. Fine, thank you. Well, I'll open it up now. I've got most of you down to say something. Bearing in mind we do have a meeting afterwards, but just sort of try and keep it fairly brief if you can. I've got Councillor Crawley, Alderman, Atwell, Kotowski, Jones and O'Riordan in that sort of order. So, Councillor Crawley.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for this presentation. It's been really helpful to get a good view of what's going to be proposed. I like the design in concept. I like what's being presented. I was wondering though, across the road from the view we've got here, just off screen, is the Sugarloaf pub, which goes quite late into the evening some night with some very loud music, and it's a popular haunt for locals. Quite late, I think possibly like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. So we've got, I'm a little concerned, or the question I'm raising really is are these soundproof? What mitigations have been put into place that would stop residents that move into there making complaints, and that would potentially harm the current activities of one of the few thriving pubs in Dunstable?
I know Carol has spoken about this before, where the people who will be applying, so there's higher demand than there is need, so those who will be applying, we'd hope, understand the sort of town centre context and actually that it's going to be a louder environment. But we are also having to do some ventilation requirements anyway, because of potential at key times. There is obviously cars, and there is quite a big car park, that the windows can be shut and there is still the appropriate ventilation rates. So hopefully that works in tandem, that if there happens to be, you know, a bit of a rowdy evening going on, they can still shut the window, still remain, you know, reasonably comfortable, and then, you know, our ventilation strategy that we're having to adopt allows for that in the process.
Councillor Alderman.
Hello. I have two questions. I may have missed it. What's the plan for renewable energy generation on the roof? Is there a plan for that? And second question, these are, am I correct in understanding that these will be rented from Central Bedfordshire Council, and therefore the affordable rates will continue in perpetuity? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it will be 100% affordable rent. And the ones on the ground floor, as I said, will be for adult social care. So what we will do is make sure that we have a sensitive allocation process or a sensitive let, so that you're getting the right people in the right place. And I think that's what we're adopting a lot more now, where actually rather than being open to everyone, we're actually quite selective, so that you set an allocation policy or a local lettings policy, so that you make sure that the right people are going to the right place. Because obviously if you have got people who've got some additional needs, yeah, you need to be sensitive to that, because we want to make sure everybody's happy living there and they can sustain their tenancies. Hopefully that helps you.
And whether or not there'll be renewable energy generation or lots of insulation, those sorts of things. Thank you.
Sorry, so on the planned roof, we've got solar panels and air source heat pumps. So yeah, we are working towards carbon emission, like net zero and carbon emissions, with renewable resources.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Atwell.
Hi there, yeah. First impressions, I must say, I do like the look of the building. I think it fits really nicely. It looks modern, clean, and it's got that green element to it, which is really good. I just asked about the provision of the allocation of the flats. Is it, with it being all one bedroom, I'd have thought there'd have been probably a mix of probably some 2 bedrooms in there as well. And the second part of the question was really what you've already answered about solar panels, but to understand that's going to be incorporated. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, no, as part of our housing needs assessment, we found that actually 1-bedroomed accommodation is quite high in demand. And the other reason really is it's taken quite a long time for where we started and where we now, and everything has been changing. Obviously we've had COVID in the middle of all this, but one of the things that we wanted to do is having an offer for other people, and we thought with it being town centre, it is fairly confined. There's not loads of car parking, as you could see, that we wanted to see if we could have a bit more of a sustainable option, that people are saying, well, there is no car parking, and some of you might know that we've got the same for All Saints View in Houghton Regis, which actually is not having a negative effect on the people who are interested in moving in. I think some people were a bit worried about it, but actually that's not proving to be the case. Some of these properties, what the idea is, as I said, have been very selective, and the people who want to move in, economically active people, will be trying to target, but also the people will have to know that there is no car parking and that you're in the town centre, and then you can use the guided busway, things like that. Thank you.
Councillor Kotowski.
Thank you, Chair. Generally speaking, happy with the idea. It's got a few points that you might want to sort of take away. Just felt like some of the aluminium shuttering looks a bit like bars, a little bit prison-like. I don't know if they could become like shutters to like shut out the light and sort of be flexible. Also the white paint, is that likely to be subject to staining? Because most white buildings I see have got grey and black streaks down. It would become quite unsightly after a while. If you want to cover those 2 points to start with.
In terms of the aluminium shading, it's there as part of it's 2 process really. We're trying to, the balconies obviously need protection, but we're also trying to look at solar gains. So in trying to design, we need to allow as much sun in during the winter as we can to help reduce energy bills, because that helps naturally heat the space. But in the height of summer, the shades are there to help reduce that solar gain, so you don't overheat the building during that process. So they are being detailed and worked on at the moment, and the exact material, we did have wood originally, but we're concerned about the long-term maintenance of that. So the idea I think we're looking at the moment is a wood effect aluminium finish. There's something that gives that softer appearance potentially of timber, but not with the maintenance issue that would necessarily get with timber in that process. and then the white render will be a very select product to help try and reduce the mitigation of the staining and the issues that you do get sometimes. And sometimes it's just from cheap specifications, sometimes it's necessary to understand the location and make sure the right product helps towards that.
A couple other queries. You mentioned that there's care present on the premises. Are you happy that you can actually get the care resources? Because mentioning All Saints, I know somebody who lives there, and apparently they've had limited take-up because there's a restriction on the amount of care personnel they can actually get in place. So I'm concerned that you might not actually get the care places filled, so to get the relevant residents in property in the first place. Which also, the All Saints on a separate topic, there's a large car park, but residents aren't allowed to use it, which is a problem for some of the residents who have moved in. But that's a side issue. But it's mainly on the care issue and making sure you've got enough people who are going to be able to work there, basically. Another one was we mentioned about the public house. Is it going to be just double glazing or triple glazing to help cut that noise down? And final one was you mentioned the start-up businesses. Would there be financial help for those start-up businesses in the way of like low rents or anything like that?
It's all right. Shall I take the first few questions? So about care. So I'm in housing, and it's adult social care, health and housing. So we've got one director who's responsible for the housing and for the adult social care. And this is clearly one of the things that is quite important to keep people in the community and make sure that we've got care provided. So I know that adult social care have been working for quite a long time to try and get more supported housing so that people can live in the community. And I'm quite sure that the right care, and we'll have enough people who are interested in going, and as I said, because the director is going to be making sure that that happens. But certainly in terms of a needs assessment, we actually have somebody from adult social care who's on the commissioning side on the project, so they're being kept informed every step of the way, and no doubt they're looking to see the right people and making sure that they're there. The next question, sorry.
Double glazing, triple glazing.
Getting to very much detail.
I mean, it's part of the process. There is, through, maybe not this stage through planning, we know there are requirements. I've done a similar project in Southwark that was right on Old Kent Road, which had very similar situations, and depending on the manufacturer specifications, each of them have various dB ratings. So it will be a performance versus cost exercise a little bit later on, but the likelihood is, because of its location, is something we'll have to provide anyway, and it'll just make sure it'll no doubt be detailed out through the planning process.
We have also done an acoustic report by a specialist, by a professional, so the design will be progress based on the acoustic report.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Obviously, you've just mentioned the planning process, so without giving too much of my own opinions away, I'm a bit disappointed to see that the lack of community engagement space. There may be a couple of units that we've talked about, glass-fronted units along the side, but it would have been hoped to have had a larger community space for Dunstable residents to benefit from the loss of the library. Appreciate we've got the library down at the new centre, but this is in the heart of our town. It would have been nice to have had some more community space built in for activities within our town centre. I'll leave the rest of my comments when we have our planning meeting. When it comes to planning, that's the right place to post our comments.
Thank you. Councillor Reardon.
Thank you, Chair. When we had the joint committee, the Dunstable Joint Committee on 7th September, we requested a copy of the slides because I had a number of questions myself that we didn't really have time for within the meeting. We didn't receive those. I did want to send you some questions directly. I have a number. Are we going to receive those? I know you didn't want us to share them. We said we wouldn't, but will we receive those?
Thank you. Yeah, we will be sending them out. What we were clear on is that we wanted to come along to here, and then also we've then got to get the pamphlet out, which will be going out in the next day or so anyway. We just wanted to make sure that everything was coordinated. That was in line with our engagement advice. So yeah, after coming here, we've got the leaflet going out this week, so in the next day or so, we're more than happy to share them when it's out in the public domain.
And it means that everybody who's asking a question will go through the same central system and it will be place.
Thank you. I just understood that we were going to receive that to put our questions forward before the public consultation started. I note that you said that that's going to happen on Monday of next week. Is it just one day? Are we going to be informed about that? Is there any publicisation of it? I haven't seen anything come out.
I think that's what we were saying, that we're doing the pamphlets are being printed at the moment, and we're going to get it on social media, and we're going to put some posters up in key locations around here.
Councillor Jones, you want to come back on that point?
Yeah, please. Just with less than now and a week to go then, how are we going to get that message out that this is a public consultation for the public? With less than a week, people work between, it was between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. 3 till 7. It worries me that we're not going to get the message out to the people of Dunstable for them to be able to come out and actually have a look at these plans. It seems to be very last minute, in my opinion, the public consultation. So the earlier we can get them, when are we likely to have that publicity out? Is it going to be tomorrow?
I think I'm trying to rack my brain what day. I know it's this week.
I think the leaflet was going out either today or tomorrow.
Right, thank you. Yeah, and that'll have the time and the date. I think if we find that, I mean, we're going to be publicising it, and we've got an email address for people to give some feedback. If we find that we have not got enough people turn up next week, I can assure you we'll make sure that we can put up another date. We'll just have to find if they've got any more space at the Dunstable Town Centre. But it's not that Monday, that's it, we won't take any feedback. We can keep the the email address open for a bit longer. I'm sorry that you feel that it's a bit short, but if you could give us some thoughts, after you've discussed it yourselves and come back to us, I'm more than happy to talk it through. Thank you.
This is on exactly the same thing. Okay.
Just one more point, a clarification. On your slide, the first slide said that that space, Vernon Place, was for extension of ASDA, etc. On the master plan, it actually was the original plan to put the new medical centre there. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
I think if I can just say that I'm here just for the engagement of Vernon Place. Housing was asked to look at providing housing on that site. I'm not involved in any other discussions about the town centre. I'm just here as the housing person. I'm sorry I can't answer that question directly because I wouldn't know the detail. All I know is I'm the project sponsor for Vernon Place, the housing scheme.
The first slide said the master plan said.
Councillor Brennan, thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, Chair. Okay, so I have a couple of things. I want to say thank you for including parking within the plan, because obviously quite a few times prior to this it was to be no parking. I had a question with regards to the disabled bays that are going to be supplied. Are they due to have electric charging points as well? Are they all electric charging points? I couldn't quite see it on the plan. It seemed like there was 3 that are electric charging points, and then the other, are they all charging points?
So the 3 accessible bays within the courtyard are not, at the moment, are not charging points. The one outside, so we've got one station serving 2 or 3 bays. So the accessible bay to the first bay can be charged by that station. But we are in discussions with the highway officer just to meet all the criteria, and any suggestions or any changes in the future will be made to the plans.
Yeah, if they could all be charging bays, that would be really good. I don't see, it just seems a bit silly that the ones inside the courtyard wouldn't be charging bays. Is there to be any restrictions on parking in that area, so that I'm a little conscious that having those parking areas there, that people are going to park in them. So is there going to be specifically resident parking with some sort of parking scheme for the residents?
So yeah, there's a vehicle gate to the front, to the east of the other side, that one, which is access control. So residents will have a fob or a card reader to access the courtyard. So only tenants and residents can access the courtyard parking.
Okay, cool. How about the ones outside? Is there any way that those are going to be restricted so that they're only for? I realise that this is a planning thing that should go through planning. I would just like to bring it up now, as there's time to change it. I'm just worried that people are going to park there, and then the residents aren't going to be able to park. So is there any way that that can be included in the plans, that there is parking restrictions on those bays, so that it is solely for the use of the residents?
Yeah, I think we can look in housing, because obviously it will be our building and residents will be coming to us if they're not happy. So we'll have to look at a parking arrangement, parking scheme that is enforceable. We haven't had those discussions as yet. I think again it's another iteration later when we're a bit further forward. Cool. Thank you.
I also I'm very happy that it's all affordable housing. I'm very, very happy with that. With regards to social care on site, as per Councillor Katarski's comment, we obviously have social care that is owned by the council, as in a social care company that is owned by the council called Carers Central. So I do believe that it can be specified as part of the plans. We could, if we wanted to, specify that is there. I know it's not your just place, but I'm just feeding it back that I believe as part of the plans we could make it specified that Carers Central ensures that care is there within the building. Thanks.
Right, well, thank you. I think as most of you have made a contribution there. I'll just say that I hope flat roof technology has moved on sufficiently, because the problems we had with the old library were such that the rain kept on pouring in. So hopefully that is going to be that sort of problem is going to be eliminated. As you've heard, we'll certainly be keeping an eye on the planning process, and there'll be further time to make comments when that becomes a little bit clearer. So thank you very much indeed for coming along here, and I would hope that we will have a similar informal, I know it's a different stage, but similar informal discussions about Watling House at this council as well, which we're a little bit concerned about. Thank you very much indeed. You're very welcome to stay at the meeting. If you wish to depart, we can understand.